where the gaps might be. You can be able to see it. You kind of learn it the more you get into it. But even having maybe an orientation where you talk about professionalism and bringing that in and what lines up with the company policies. This way everyone's on the same page and has that understanding. Peer support, like I talked about before, it is so important. Peer support works everywhere. Having people in your life who can guide you through a process, whether it's buying a car, whether it's how to find a job, working on a resume, how to complete a job, establishing a mentorship program inside of your organization with the more experienced employees, it gives them a chance to pour into the newer employees, and it gives the newer employees a chance to hear live information. Hey, this is what the job is. This is what it looks like for me. And the employee can then take that from whatever they're learning in a mentorship program and apply it to their day-to-day. It also builds my favorite word in the world, connection and teamwork and camaraderie between the employees, because now they're not sitting in two different cubicles doing their own thing. They're interacting, they're talking. There's some buy-in from the mentor who's trying to show somebody how to raise their skill level at whatever task or job that they have that day. And then a lot of the employees are going to want to be able to perform the way that mentor is. That's why they're listening to them in the first place. So facilitating peer-to-peer networking groups within the organization, introducing people they have that day. You can encourage team building activities that foster connection. I tell you right now, I work in an organization with about, 220 employees, and I'm being a little bit sarcastic here, but about 219 of them are justice impacted. It's probably closer to about 200, and the place flourishes. I do tours in there all the time. I bring people in, I show them what we do there. And literally the first thing I hear from everyone is, man, I can't believe the energy in here. I can feel it. I can't believe the energy. I brought a lady, and this is a true story, with a PhD in from GCU, and we took a tour. By the time that tour was over, she handed me a resume in the parking lot. I have nothing to do with HR or hiring. I seen her the other day. She's now an employee where I work at because she feels the energy. And that energy, it's built through peer support. It's built through connection. Just putting this presentation together today. Kevin works in a different department. I said, hey, I got to do this presentation. Can you show me how to do it? Can you work with me on it? And Kevin and I were able to put this whole thing together. Jennifer was able to lean into it. And this is what we were able to come up with. I've been to organizations where nobody's going to help you. I've been to organizations where you're on your own. That's not a healthy environment, not just for justice impacted, but just for human beings in general, right? So peer support, finding ways to implement it and use it in the workforce, in your organization, extremely important. The other thing that happens at this organization, I saw it at Peer and Family. I even see it at DES. I don't know if it's an organizational wide thing, but the team that I've worked with at Arizona at Work, I have absolutely seen the collaboration, and I've seen the mutuality, and I've seen how it benefits people. Because when you work together, when you value someone's opinion, when you ask for help, when you get that sense of being heard, it's a pretty good feeling that comes with being able to involve multiple team members, right, in the interview process, like we talked about. Promoting shared decision. Promoting shared decision making in project assignments and different role development. That's awesome, because now you're not just doing what somebody told you. You're completing a project that you have some fingerprints on, right? You've touched that project. You've had some say so. Let's get it as good as we can. It's a lot easier when you're personally invested. Some of those decisions are yours. Some of these processes are yours. I'm not saying that can work all the time, but the more inclusive we can be in that decision-making process, the more collaboration and mutuality and buy-in we're going to have from everybody as a whole. And as always, anywhere, foster that inclusive work environment. And an inclusive work environment, by definition, everyone's input's going to be valued. Even if it's not going to work, we're still going to hear it out. We're still going to talk through it. Maybe I can even take the time to explain why we have to go a different direction. How can you help us go in that different direction? There's always going to be an opportunity to bring people in for that collaboration and for that mutuality. Empowerment, voice, and choice. We want to have and be able to encourage candidates to express their career goals during the interview. And here's why I say this is important. If someone does not have career goals, if someone doesn't have aspirations, if someone just wants a job, that depending on your organization, that might be great. If someone has these career goals and you can see they've done some work and they've done some planning and they're going to be going to school or they're going to be doing this, that might be great for your organization. But the only way we know these things is if we ask these questions. Plus, we get to get a gauge and kind of take a temperature and a feel for where that person's at in their recovery, in their reentry, in their onboarding process back into the community. We always want to offer opportunities as well for professional development and skill building. One of the best things that happened to me when I was at Peer and Family, they would always offer, hey, do you want to take this assist class? And it was like a suicide prevention and education training. Hey, do you want to take this leadership course? I actually got credentialed as a talent development professional while I was there. And getting these little wins, these certifications, it builds self-confidence, it raises self-esteem, and it's better for everybody because coming back into the office every day and being a little bit better than yesterday, that's going to continually improve me. It's going to continually improve the work that I get to do for the organization as a whole. Something else that we can think about, and this depends, obviously, organizational too, but allowing that flexibility in role assignments based on individual strengths and preferences. I'm a huge strength-based person. Every single person has inherent strengths in them. So if a role has a task that doesn't really fit the strengths of that person who's in that role, maybe he can do a little trade-off or she can do a little trade-off with somebody else, and we can play to their strengths. Empowering people, giving them that voice, giving them that choice, 100% is going to help our work environments improve. So here's kind of where stuff gets sticky. And I know I don't have to get into detail on why it gets sticky in today's society. If you don't know what I'm talking about, turn on a TV for 5 minutes. Cultural, historical, and gender issues. These are things that are going to come up, issues that are going to arise. We have to recognize and respect cultural differences in communications and in work styles. People speak differently, and that's okay. We have to provide training on cultural competence and diversity for all employees, what that looks like. And again, when we're dealing with justice impacted and men and women that have just returned from incarceration, there might be some gaps in cultural competency because of the stuff that happens in the prison environments that shouldn't be happening in the community. It shouldn't be happening anywhere, but it's more prevalent and more focused, that you can see it easier in the prison environments. So educating on that. To me, educating is kind of the key to solving all the problems. Let's talk about it. Let's figure it out. Let's bring somebody in a safe place where we can ask questions. We can have these conversations. And as always, as employers, we definitely want to ensure that our hiring practices are free from bias. When we talk about being free from bias, that includes individuals with justice impacted backgrounds, right? That's a bias, whether you can see it or not. Went to a business mixer probably a month ago, and it was at a local bank, and actually not a local bank, but it was for a bank. And when they started off, everyone kind of introducing themselves, they picked me to go first for some reason. And when I shared my background and what I did for my company at Refine to Inspire, I could immediately see the looks. I could immediately see the turnoff. And the pretty cool thing is the guy came to me afterwards and he said, "Hey, man, I thought you were a construction worker." I said, "Yeah, I get it. Shaved head, tattoos, probably got a little bit of prison swag. I can see why you said that." I was like, "Hey, do you guys hire formerly incarcerated?" He goes, "Oh, no." He goes, "We're not able to do that." So then I'm like, what about the tax credits? And he's like, "What tax credits?" And immediately there was some interest. Even if the motivation is financial, right? Even if that is a driving factor to be able to build your company and be able to save and earn a little bit of extra money from it, it still opened the door for him. I don't know if he changed his policy on it, but learning about that stuff is really important. And on the next slide here, I'm going to ask Jennifer who is the guru of all things second chance, fair chance employment. If you wouldn't mind running us through the slide, Jen.
Sure, absolutely. Thank you, George.
Thank you.
So yes, this is pretty much a list of some of the benefits that an organization can take advantage of when considering the second chance and fair chance job seekers. You've got the work opportunity tax credit, which we for shorthand call it the WOTC. Employers can receive this tax credit for hiring individuals from certain target groups, and that does include justice impacted. So when they look at these target groups for the WOTC, it's really about identifying long-term unemployed individuals. And the tax credit could be a range. It could be anywhere from $1,200 to $9,600. And why does it differ from hiring one employee versus another? Because it really just depends how many boxes that person can check. So when doing the work opportunity tax credit forms, there's actually two forms. They're very identical, so I don't know why the government has two forms, but there are. I say make this part of your new hire packet and have all new hires completed, because you may know, hey, if you come to one of my hiring events at a second chance center inside a prison, okay, you know that person's been justice impacted. But if somebody comes in and walks in off the street to just do an application for a job in your organization, you don't know anything about them. You don't know if they've been justice impacted, if they're receiving SNAP benefits, if they've been long-term unemployed and have a veteran status, if they have a disability of some sort. The more boxes someone checks on that form, the greater that tax incentive is, and it can go up to $9,600. Federal bonding is an insurance policy. It's bonding. It's a safety net, and the federal government does put that out there to employers, all employers, to take advantage of, to just mitigate any risk they feel they might be taking on by hiring someone from a particular target group. So if something should get broken, get lost, misplaced, stolen during work, you have an insurance policy. To participate in the federal bonding program is at no cost to the employer. There is no deductible for filing a claim if you have to file a claim. Claims pay out in $5,000 increments up to $25,000 per claim. And God forbid, if you need to make more than one claim, you can. That's not a problem. In some states, there are state-specific incentives. I did research it. I'm not aware of any state-specific incentives here in Arizona. But if you are a larger organization and have locations in other states, you might want to research that in the other states your organization might be in. Of course, having inclusive hiring practices will reduce turnover, especially when you're seeking out specifically justice impacted job seekers. Many of the employers that I work with who are regulars at my hiring events, they tell me all the time, the folks I've hired from the Second Chance Center, from the Mesa Parole Office events, from the Red Class virtual Second Chance programs, they've worked out to be our best employees. Truly, when you give someone a chance and you show that you're investing in them, they will return the favor and they will invest in you and your organization. So when you invest that time, that caring, the mentorship, the understanding, the leeway, hey, you've got an appointment today, go take your appointment. And I tell job seekers all the time, employers are happy to give you the time off if you tell them in advance. That's what PTO is there for, but you have to communicate as well. So if you show them that communication is a two-way street and an open door, people will be more comfortable to communicate. So it will reduce your turnover. And yes, enhance corporate social responsibility. So being recognized as an organization that is inclusive, including individuals who are justice impacted, I think it's a win-win. I think it looks very good for your reputation, in my personal opinion.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was absolutely awesome. Kevin gets to see, as we move on to the next slide here, Kevin gets to see a lot of this stuff firsthand. And what happened with me, just to be completely honest again and transparent, I was telling Kevin about this presentation in my apartment. We were having a conversation, and he started explaining to me why it's important that we do this and the results that he'd seen. Kevin, would you mind taking 2 minutes or so and just explaining what you've seen and firsthand?
Absolutely, and it's all the stuff that Jennifer kind of just spoke on. What we've seen is when we train our members in a trade that they've maybe never been in, right? And I can give some specific examples, but when they complete our training and then they go to work in these industries, they are much more loyal. They are more hungry than just your average job seeker off the street. You know, they do have, they feel this urgency to make up for lost time and to make money and spend time with their kids and their families. So they do typically work much harder than your typical job seeker coming out of the general population. We had a member come through. He had been a drywaller for 30 years. Master drywaller, I mean, level 5 finishes, everything. And he came to us and said, you know what, I really don't want to drywall anymore. And we're like, cool, we got all these other classes. What do you want to do, right? And we're thinking he's going to pick something in the trades, one of the other trades we have. And he's like, I really want to take culinary. And we're like, what? Mind blown, right? This guy takes the culinary class, does it pretty much the whole time he's here, gets a job at a restaurant in Scottsdale that's very famous, small mom and pop place, been around for 40 plus years. And within 3 months, he has keys to the restaurant. He's pretty much managing their entire back of house, and he's on track. Like, they're looking to retire, and he's on track to basically just be given a restaurant from these two business owners that are ready to leave the job market, sell their restaurant to him, and just kind of exit. That's an opportunity that he otherwise would have never been able to step into, right? Because when you take someone, if he would have just got released from prison and not come to a program that offered these things, he probably would have went right back into drywall, and he probably would have hated it. That same person, you know, bought a vehicle, is in the process of looking at purchasing a home. So it's one of those things that even these small little second chance companies that we send to, right? These large corporations, you know, they're the ones more seeking those tax incentives. Sorry. Even these smaller ones give great opportunities. And that's what I really love about my job is we really get to know the person and then match up what kind of industry, whether they would do better in a smaller company that does offer those things we just talked about the trauma-informed practices from SAMHSA, like the peer support. Are they going to mentor the person? That's something we're really big on too. Like, yeah, it's cool to have a supervisor at work, but who's your mentor? Who's going to keep professionally growing you outside of the organization you work for once you leave here, right? And we try to match people up as best we can with some mentors that we would know of in the community. But most of the companies we work for, they see a great retention rate with our members that are leaving. They get offered fair wages. And these dudes just, I mean, all around, all these companies, they come back to us and they say, we only want to hire out of New Freedom. And that's because these members typically, when they're supported properly, and these justice involved individuals, they're hard workers, extremely loyal. George and Jennifer touched a lot on it, but they are absolutely, you know, and I say all the time, because there's still this stigma, right? And I think the next barrier, like we're obviously here talking about employment, a bigger barrier is housing, right? And at the end of the day, I would love for any of our members or any of these justice involved individuals to be my next door neighbor, because I know they're going to watch over my house when I'm not there. They're going to be good neighbors and keep their house clean and take pride and ownership of whatever they're doing. So there's a lot of barriers we still need to work through, right? But starting with employment, they can't get to the housing without employment.
That's awesome, Kevin. And then the cool thing is, because obviously Kevin and I work together, we're not just hitting you with a couple of highlights from things that we've seen and cherry pick it. This is the normal stuff we hear. Like, I literally have to be mindful to practice gratitude and continue to appreciate the really cool things that I get to hear every single day, because I get to hear so much cool stuff and so many people winning. It's when you take people like us, people that are just impacted, people that have been through it, we think a little bit different, right? I can say that comfortably. But now that we have meaning, we have purpose, we have direction, we have family, we have people who believe in us, once we turn it on, we turn it all the way on. And we break through obstacles, we figure stuff out, we get it done. And it's just, we wanted to put this together today for information purposes, to kind of share the story. People that are just, again, back to the 2 words, well, 3 words I'm going to use right now. Create some connection with people who might not have, who don't operate in this field or maybe are thinking about it. Encourage collaboration. You know, we can work together to figure what this looks like moving forward. And mutuality, man, we're 100% all in this together. And again, just to kind of bring it back, none of this would have happened, right, with the people in this room if people weren't reaching into the prisons. None of this would have happened. It might have happened in a different way with different people or something, but this experience right here is a direct result of Jennifer's work, of Callie's work, of Elisa's work, of Kevin's work, and of my work. And that's why we all get to be here today. We get to share this awesome stuff with you. We get to figure out ways through it. Is there going to be setbacks with this? Absolutely. Here's the bad news. Any business you have, I promise you there's going to be some setbacks. We just take those in stride. We move forward. Something happens, we learn from it, and when we figure out another way to move forward with it. But this literally happens every single day. Kevin and I happen to be hyper exposed to it because of where we work. Jennifer's day job is literally working in this space. This is all she's exposed to, and the awesome employers that get to work here. Matter of fact, Jennifer just got hooked up with an employer who I was in prison with, who just built a moving company from the ground up and just bought like a $700,000 moving truck. I'm making that number up, but it's very nice and very big, so it's extremely expensive. And now he gets to go back in as a second chance employer and bring them out. So we just wanted to share that with you today. If there's any questions, feel free to let us know. There's my mentor in the flesh, John Antonucci. Go ahead, John.
Hey, George. First of all, I want to say great job today and great job with everything you're doing. I just wanted to say, I think that there tends to be, when we're having these conversations, actually, first of all, let me back up. George Sau's mentor, what he did not say was that I did a 14-year prison sentence. So let's start there. 14-year prison sentence from 2009 to 2021. I was incarcerated, spent the last 2 years under community supervision. And so I got a privilege to be a part of some of these cool things. You guys are doing so much more today than you were while I was in and when I got out. And it's just really cool to see all the things that specifically George has gotten to do. I'm sitting there going, my goodness, I didn't want to do another 3.5 years in prison, but if I could have gotten out to all this cool stuff, it might have been worth it. No, I'm joking. What I actually wanted to say, though, was this. I think when we're having these conversations specifically about the workforce, even when we don't mean to, there is a tendency to relegate those that have been justice impacted into some of those positions like George mentioned, or someone said, I thought you were a construction worker. And I think that just subconsciously there's this idea that people coming out of prison should absolutely be given the chance to work blue collar jobs. People coming out of prison should absolutely be given the chance. And we have these biases that are there. And I walked out, and because of some of the stuff I did while I was in, similar to what George did, I walked out and became a training manager for an international company, and then turned into the director of revenue for that international company. I don't know a whole lot of people that have that in their mind when they're thinking about employing justice impacted individuals. And so I just want to say that I would encourage those of us that are already forward minded enough to be on a call like this and are already trying to promote this, to make sure that both the language we're using as well as the examples we're giving and things like that represent the fact that there are people that did time for whatever reason that are incredibly talented and incredibly skilled in areas that are not those jobs. And I use the word those kind of in that metaphorical sense, right? There's a guy that I know that's going to be getting out in 40-something days who was essentially using the internet before the internet was a thing to help track flights for the TSA before the internet was a thing, right? I mean, this incredibly bright person, and I would hate to see him not being given an opportunity to actually share his gifts. So I can get kind of passionate about this, but I'm a success story that would show that, hey, 3 years of post-release. I actually just recently stepped away from that 9 to 5 corporate world and went full-time in my own organization, which is that nice logo you all see behind me. But yeah, I want to just encourage us to be thinking about where a person's giftings can actually serve the world, because I think there's a lot of opportunities there that may or may not be being explored simply because of maybe unconscious preconceived notions that exist.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Kelly?
Yes, this is so good, and I totally agree, John. Thank you for sharing, your story and a little bit of your experience as well. With Persevere, for those who don't know, we're teaching folks to be full-stack web developers and create websites. And we, definitely starting out, we've been doing it for about 4 or 5 years. Really thought that the tech industry would be more welcoming to our folks. Turns out not necessarily the case. I mean, we have some amazing success stories, but there is just a lot of that still in some industries that those folks, quote unquote, should be in certain industries. That's definitely still something we're trying to overcome. And I'm curious, I know Jennifer has some comments too, but what industries you might be seeing that are maybe new that are opening up to folks with a record?
If I could just jump in real quick. I'm actually hosting a prison event today, and the rest of my team is exiting the prison event, so I have to leave here to go pick them up so they're not standing outside of a prison. Jennifer and Kelly and Kevin, thank you so much. Everybody else, thank you so much. You guys have an absolutely great day.
Thank you so much, George. And his contact information is in the chat for any of you who...
Yeah, reach out, any questions, anytime. I'm here for everyone.
Thanks,
have a great
George.
day.
Great. Thank you, George. And I just want to remind employers that although we're talking about a specific subset of job seekers, we're talking about second chance, fair chance, reentry, really everything we've talked about today, I would hope from an HR perspective, you're already doing. You're already doing in your practices, and to just take what you already do and expand that to be even more inclusive of other job seeker populations that you might not have considered. For instance, when you're doing an interview, you should always be gearing your questions towards the job description. Make sure the person fits the job description, not that bias you think the person should fit in your head. Let's put theory into practice here, and if you can make accommodations for someone based on, say, the Americans with Disabilities Act, you can make accommodations for someone who has certain restrictions based on their release. It's just about thinking about the things you already do from a different perspective and a different angle and applying them. So it's not a far reach, it's not a hard stretch, and you don't have to retool a whole lot. Just maybe a little bit of perspective. But please, we'd like more questions too.
And I will note real quick too, so it's in the chat. You guys are gonna be the first to see this, but we do have our new inclusive guide to fair chance hiring that really gives a lot more details too, some checklists, some things to think about through the HR process and interviews and all sorts of different things. So it is in the chat. There's a little link you can click on to get that. So that will give you a lot more details, but obviously everyone here on the call has some great expertise too, and get your contact information in the chat. Jennifer, and I know Kevin's in there as well. But yes, it's been so good, and I really do agree with Jennifer that if you're doing these things for things like just disabilities, DEI in general, there's not a whole lot of retweaking that needs to be done. It's just being, conscious of those things you might need to add in. Let's see, someone had a hand raised. Maybe they took it back down.
I don't see the hand, but Trip Taylor has a question there. Have you talked to JFF about collaborating in their Fair Chance Employer cohort training?
That is a great question. I know at Persevere we have reached out, have not, in theory, heard back yet, but I did see that come out, and I think that's a great opportunity for folks to be able to connect with other people at that, as well as the Second Chance Business Coalition. If you can get in there, that one's a little bit harder to do, but.
I'd like to Denisha's comment in the chat that some barriers are housing and reliable transportation. Absolutely, we are finding the same thing. Yes, it's a vicious cycle. You need employment to have housing, but you also need to have stable housing to be able to then go out and go to work and be productive in your day. It is a vicious cycle. Housing is something I am working closely on with ADCRR, in fact, and we are partnering with ADCRR on their next big hiring event, which is November 15th. That'll be downtown at the Salvation Army Croc Center, and it is their employment, housing, and resource fair, and we do that twice a year. So hopefully we'll have lots of housing partners there as well. In terms of transportation, we also partner with Freebird Auto. Jerry Traffney, who owns Freebird Auto, he graduated from the Second Chance Center and created his business, and he makes car purchasing affordable for reentry job seekers, helps people who have bad, poor, or no credit history, and helps get them into vehicles so that they can get to work.
That is awesome.
Yes, I feel like there's lots of more, resources, coming out, and we're kind of at, some ways a tipping point. I know Persevere, with our folks, the thing that kind of makes us maybe different than some educational, stuff inside prisons is that we really do have that wraparound service. And so for a year after they release, we're providing wraparound services and employment support. So, one of the things we've started doing now is even just rideshare gift cards. You get out, you can have a rideshare gift card to be able to get some places. So making sure people can get to where they need to go. Sometimes they talk about how housing, easiest thing to reduce homelessness is housing people, even with transportation, giving a rideshare gift card, someone at, Freebird Auto that, wants to connect and help people. We can do these things. We just got to all team up together. And I feel like there's more and more resources coming along, and hopefully we'll reach a tipping point soon. All right. Want to be conscious of people's time. If anyone has one last question, if not, we will start wrapping up.
Hallie, thank you. Kevin, thank you. And of course, thank you to George. I know he had to step off already. George organized this and pulled this all together, and I'm very happy that we could all be here. Thank you, everyone.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much. And we'll send, email out to make sure you get that download of our inclusive hiring guide. And please reach out to any of us or all of us if you have any questions or want to connect further. Thank you so much, and have a great day, all.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Good to see you too, Elisa.
Bye. So good to see you.